for the last 5 years in a row, I've sold more solar than anybody else on the planet.
We like to help people that have already reached the pinnacle of their success, but there's another 5-10%.
I could easily make 7 figures year after year after year selling solar. I know I have a bigger life ahead of me.
These last 5 to 10% will give them exponentially more.
$190 million here. I can do what I want with who I want.
It's no longer about physical hard work. It's about the work in the mind. Have you designed your ideal friends and clients?
No.
You don't free up enough space and time for people that they're actually living that life. Why hang out with normal people? All right, welcome everyone back to Brokers of Secrets. Now, I don't know how long this name is going to stay, to be honest, because we have started shifting our podcast to helping very, very special individuals. Really just, we're having conversations. And we're having these conversations, but these conversations break our mental model of the world. Frankly, this is more of a depiction of my daily life. And a lot of people don't really know what it's like to do what we do. And I love sharing it because I think if you geek out on how the change of something in someone's mind can change something in their physical life, then you're in for a treat. And today we have my very special friend who's an extremely talented and skillful and who has worked very hard, Luke. He's one of the best salespeople in the world. And I do want him to brag about himself. And by the way, you may notice that everyone we bring on have different backgrounds because we want to show you, hey, look, if you can change something in the mind, it doesn't matter where you come from. Sure, there's a common theme. They're really good at what they do, right? That's our focus. We like to help people that have already reached the pinnacle of their success, in a sense. But there's another 5-10%. But that last 5-10% is completely unconscious. And if you use Jungian words, it might sound like shadow work, but there's more to it. These last 5 to 10% will give them exponentially more. Exponentially more, because it's no longer about physical hard work. It's about the work in the mind. And if it were to be just guesswork, we wouldn't have a system that we're going to be sharing with you. I want you to see the system, the patterns over the different episodes, because every episode we're using the same patterns, the same systems. And if you watch enough of them, you'll see a pattern that you, if you're listening, watching, are experiencing a plateau, even at the highest level. Maybe you're stuck somewhere. Even if you have worked really hard and you can't get past that, then this is perfect for you. We are going to show you how we can get past that. So thank you for coming on. Now, Luke, I want you to tell us, brag about yourself, don't hold anything back, really give us, and I wish everybody would do this, right? Like not a lot of people will actually brag about themselves when they introduce themselves, but I want you to embrace how awesome you are and tell our audience like you.
Yeah. So I got to qualify myself, right? Qualify. So for the last 5 years in a row, I've sold more solar than anybody else in the country. That would be essentially the world. So every single year I've gotten an award for being the best solar salesman on the planet. Every single year. So, and let me kind of tell you what this looks like. This looks at kitchen tables, and I've sold over $60 million one-to-one. And I've been able to lead teams. I had a 9-figure solar sales business last year. 2025. And I've overcome a lot of things in my life. And so I was just reflecting on this over the last couple of months. I was a drug addict derelict for a long time, in and out of prisons and jails over and over and over again. Continued to repeat the same loops and patterns over and over and over again. Finally, I made a decision to get clean. I got clean, worked a construction job. By the way, I came from a family of my family was a single mom. So my dad was not around, and it's generation after generation after generation of making bad decisions. So broken home after broken home after broken home. So I would say that people that grow up in those sort of positions, they've got a lot longer way to go than what you would have if you had mom and a dad in the house, right? And so that's kind of like the beginning of my story. And then I got clean, stayed clean, got a construction job, and hated it, knew that I was worth so much more. A friend gave me a book in 2008, read the book, changed my life, changed my existence. And at that point, I realized that I was the maker of my life. I was in control of my life, and I was responsible for everything that happens in my life. Me. Wasn't life happening to me, life was happening for me. And I understood that I was just thinking the wrong things. That's why my life was a collection of what it was. And so at that point, I started reading more and more books, and I just compounded book after book after book after book after book. And my life didn't immediately change right then. The mindset did. And I was a lot joyful. I was happy, even though I was broke. It's 2008. I was a construction worker. There wasn't a whole lot of work, but I was still joyful and happy because I knew that I was going to live a better life. I knew it. I knew it in the pit of my stomach. I knew it in my heart. And once I understood that I was in the ultimate control, I was in the driver's seat, then I could start creating and designing the life that I truly wanted. And then, a year later, I found a sales job, and I found my calling. I knew that when I hit that sales job, I knew that I had made it. I knew that this is what I was called to do, the art of persuasion, and I was really good at it. And I came out the gate, and I was the number one. I was the number one rep in the company. There was just over 380 reps. This was alarms at the time. It was 2009, and then 2010, 2011, 2012. I dominated the charts. And this is coming from a guy, a construction drug addict kid, right? So like the idea is that I believe that we prepare the soil of our mind, and then the seed's planted. If the seed would have been planted when I was doing drugs, there's no way I would have let it take hold. So all of the stuff, I was reading the book, and I look at the collection of my life, all of the things that happened for the soil of my mind to be ready for the seed to be planted. And the seed was sales. And then I look at it, grew up and produced fruit. But it's, time and time again, I was the number one, and I opened my own alarm company. I had my own alarm company. Then COVID shut everything down, and I was forced to make a decision. And I somehow miraculously, coincidentally, found solar. And I realized in the solar how many millions and millions and millions of dollars there was to be made. And this was in 2020. And I went from one sales industry to another sales industry, and I dominated. And I didn't just dominate the company, I dominated the entire nation. I've dominated the entire nation for the last 5 years, year after year after year after year. 1 year is a challenge to do. Many people are trying to get that crown spot. But then to sustain that every single year, it's incredibly challenging to kind of do that. And so I've been able to master that. And throughout that entire process, I've developed my mind. I've continued to read books. I read about 60 books a year. I've created many habits, and I have a structure and a form that I can take anybody, anywhere, anytime, and I can show them the structure. So some of it's theory. Obviously, it's working in the mind. But then it's okay, if you do all the work in the mind, then what do your outward actions show? Because once you start making the shift inside the mind, you can look at someone's life and they start making different decisions. And so now you see the collection of new behaviors. And so a whole collection of new behaviors. And at this point, I'm in this transitional phase where I'm going from the greatest salesman in solar to transitioning. And now I'm going into a coaching space. And by the way, this is exciting. And I'll tell you what, I could easily make 7 figures year after year after year, selling solar, selling whatever. And there's certainty in that. It's absolute certainty. I'm not going for the certainty. I want the uncertainty. I want the unknown. And so it's required me to lean into the little bit discomfort. I don't know what's going to happen. I like to orchestrate my mind, but here's the thing is I'm just leaning in, and I'm facing the uncertainty, and I'm just wading through the mire. But here's the other thing. There's also a knowing. I know I have a bigger life ahead of me. Just like I did when I made the decision to get clean, just like I did when I made the decision to go sell, just like I made the decision to go do solar. I always knew that there was something bigger ahead of me, but there's still a lot of uncertainty right now, right? So it's just leaning in and doing it. And so my biggest powerful story is going from, someone that was literally, people would have bet on me, that guy's going to die. I thought I was going to die by the age of 27. I was just a drug addict. I would do drugs. I would go to jail, and I'd get out and I'd do drugs again. I continued to repeat this cycle since I was 13 years old till I was 26.
Let me pause you right there. That's very interesting, because how hard it was to do drugs and then go to jail and get back out and get some more drugs. That's not easy. So even, and it may sound like I'm making fun. I'm not, because that demonstrated a obsessive pattern, right? Yeah. So if there was a drug doing award you wanted, just like you won the solar award, Again, like I said, it sounds like I'm making fun of this pattern. I'm actually not. I think this is actually one of the most important patterns successful entrepreneurs have. No matter the obstacle, you keep going, right?
So obsession, right? Yeah, I am really good at being obsessed. And then the compulsion to act out regardless of the consequences. So if just like the solar, just like the sales thing, like I just get this fixated idea in my mind and it's all I can think about. And then the compulsion to act and do whatever and to be whatever I have to be able to become that or get that. And so that's a very common denominator throughout my life. I tell people like drug addicts most drug addicts have the same similar traits. They're obsessive and compulsive. Unfortunately, it's in destructive things. So I've learned to apply the obsessive compulsive qualities into getting what I want with the best way that I could, right? So that's what I've been able to do. And so that's literally the learned behavior that I've been able to repeat and do over and over and over and over again.
So as you guys are listening, I'm going to say what's going to happen next. So Luke gave us a really awesome introduction of himself. We got to know him a little bit. What I want to do, if you're okay with this, is I want to ask some more questions so that you guys can get to know him better, right? And on top of it, like I haven't seen him in a little bit, so I want to like catch up. But these questions are all deliberate and strategic because as he opens his mind to all of us who are listening and watching, what you'll find is there are patterns. The goal of this podcast is to spot patterns. And patterns that take us to where we are or took us to where we are doesn't necessarily get us to where we want to go, right? And if we can find the patterns that took us here, we can then make some tweaks to these patterns because they definitely worked well and got Luke here. What we want to look at is what tweaks there may need to be because it's for individuals like Luke, it's not overhaul. It's not a big makeover. None of those. I mean, look at him, right? Like he looks successful. He's meant for success. And it's not like he's fake looking success. He's literally looks like success. So when you think about how that tweak is literally teeny, it's like 5%, 10%, probably not 10% for Luke, but something smaller. And when you make that tweak, it takes someone from where they are to where they want to go. And that's what gets me really excited because every time it's like, a chess game, but the chess game, imagine when you play the chess game, both opponents win. So it's whoever can get to that checkmate first. But it's weird, right? It's not one person win, the other person loses. It's both party wins. So we're both actively wanting to get to this pattern together, arriving at the same place. And then you guys also win because you get to see where the pattern arrives. So if you guys are okay with this, this is a long form podcast. I'm going to ask questions. He's going to answer. And there will be times I'm going to nudge his boundaries. There will be times he's going to open up even more. And then all of a sudden we'll arrive. And it's beautiful. You ready for this?
Let's go, dude. I'm excited.
Awesome.
I'm excited.
Awesome. Thank you again for coming on.
Yep.
I'm very selective about who I invite onto. Frankly, for a long time, I haven't invited anybody on here. And I didn't like talking by myself, frankly, because it's weird and it's boring. I mean, at least I'm bored. So because I talk enough by myself in a sense, right? As I'm researching and doing that stuff. But typically when I do training or any sort of work like this, I'm in front of an audience.
Yeah.
If there's no feedback, I'm just talking at a black hole and it's not helpful to me.
I called you about that when I first was renovating. Remember when I first signed up, I was like, dude, I'm talking to a phone. I don't understand. You're like, yeah, because of this, you don't have a response. You're not looking at the little micro expressions that people have.
Yes.
I'm like, you know what? That is exactly true. It's exactly true. So it's like, and then you did an exercise with me. It helped.
Yeah, it's dynamic because humans, as we create patterns that shift, because think of it like this, right? If we zoom out, humans all live inside of patterns that they're comfortable with.
Yep.
And we were just talking before the podcast started. We actively look for people that are going to become billionaires. We want to spot them as early as possible. It's like looking at stock, right? Imagine if you could buy Apple when it was like $1, right? Or Bitcoin when it was 3 cents. These patterns, if you spot them early enough and you bet on these people, what happens is the return is ridiculous.
Yep.
Right? And instead of betting on stock, I like betting on people.
Mm.
And I mean, I'm not here to give you investment advice. That's why I got to say that too, right? And that being said, I do prefer betting on people because I know people have a level of what you may call predictability. And these are patterns. As organic as humans are, if you look at, let's say, billionaires, their circles and their patterns existing in their circle, you can look at them, you're like, that makes sense why they're a billionaire or billionaires. People that are doing 9 figures, you look at their circle, we can see why they're doing 9 figures. There's a certain pattern, 8 figures, 7 figures, 6 figure, and then middle class income. You can see the pattern, the kind of conversation people have, right? And if I may, I'll jump into that real fast because I'm setting a frame for what we're getting into.
Yep.
So when I'm sure you have friends from all these different levels. So tell me what comes to mind first. Let's say you meet someone who's making 6 figures. What are their biggest concerns typically?
6-figure income earner. Well, I just take it back. When I made 6 figures, I thought it was a lot of money. You know, I thought 6 figures was like a lot. And I was like, wow, I made it. I finally, in my first year in sales, I made $105,000. And I was like, wow, this is incredible. It's 2010. You know, but thinking of if they're consistently making that, dude, they're worrying about bills. 6 figures is not enough. Dude, you got to easily make 8 figures to feel like you're in some sort of a comfort zone. 6 figures is not going to do it.
Even 7 figures,
7
comfortably
figures
poor.
not going to do it. Yeah, if you're making just like a $1 million a year, like you're still not able to do what you want, when you want, how you want.
Yes. So
the biggest concern is still paying the bills. They're
bills,
still
right?
Struggling with everything else.
What about the middle class now, like below 100K? What do you think their biggest concerns are?
Bills.
Also
they're
bills.
like trying to listen,
but more aggressively, right?
Yes, they're like, now their everyday life is like, I can't buy that because we won't have money. I can't do this because we won't have this. And so like every decision is predicated on like, we can't do this. We cannot do this. If their kids are asking for stuff, no, we can't do this. If they want stuff, they're having to go without. They're not able to get themselves to go to the store. I mean, you go to the grocery store, they're like, they're strategically buying. They're shopping at a particular store that will give them a better bang for their buck. They're not trying to go to the store and go buy the expensive stuff because they have to be strategic about spending money.
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden,
it's like a sport to them.
It is a sport to them, but it's also a way of living. It consumes their life. So they don't have a whole lot of extra, room to think about like about creation. They don't have a lot of extra room to think about like, hey, is this the life that I truly want? Because their life is so dedicated to like making sure that they're budgeting, making sure that they're planning. They're probably consumed with worry. I was, there's a time in my life I was consumed with worry as well. I remember that. I did not like that existence.
So let's say someone's in mid 6 figures, like 500 grand. What do you think their big concerns are? And I'm sharing this pattern with the audience, right? And I'm sure many of the people who are listening, watching are aware, but I want to point out their concerns first, and then we're going to go back and talk about that's something else.
The concern of $500,000 is probably like, they're probably living in a house, but they want a bigger house, right? They probably want they want the step up. They're almost like to the point where they can live in comfort, but you still, $500,000 a year isn't going to give you the life that you want. You're probably looking and doing some comparison, and you're probably feeling like, well, if I just make it to that next level, $500,000 is a good marker. A lot of the guys that I've trained are making $500,000 a year, but they're still living like they're broke. Like it's the concept or it's the idea behind it. Sometimes $500,000, just depending, it just ultimately depends on what stage of life too. Like if you went from $50,000 a year to $500,000 a year, just like me going from $20,000 a year to 100, I was like, I thought I had arrived. I didn't know. First of all, I didn't know anybody that made any more money than that. So I was like, I was a generation bloodline breaker by making 6 figures. But after you stay there for a while, it's like, this isn't a whole lot of money. And then you start considering some of the other options, like how much more money can I make?
And there's a reason I wanted to ask you this, because you've been in so many different people's homes that all make different income. On top of it, you've trained people, you've done it yourself, right? Different levels. So now then what happens when someone arrives at $1 million? What's their biggest concern? Because it was just bills from less like
probably
more
keeping
aggressive.
it. To keep making $1 million.
Okay.
Since you can make $1 million, like, wow, this is really cool. I like this. I wonder how I can sustain this, because like the $1 million mark is like, now they're thinking about sustaining.
Then what happens at, let's say, 3 to 5 million?
3 to 5 million. I think it's still like the same kind of bucket. That's 3 to 5 million is still not a whole lot of money. You're buying some things. You're still keeping up with the Joneses. You're still concerned about some of those things.
Not much of a change.
Not much of a change to 3 to 5 million.
Let's say 10 million now. What have you noticed are their big concerns?
The 10 million plus, the 10 million plus are usually considering of how they're going to invest in their money. They're looking for people, places, and things to make their money off of their money, and so on and so forth. I mean, most of those people, you kind of get a decent life at $10 million, in my opinion.
You know what's interesting is that I'm hearing, and I know that you guys who are listening, this isn't just Luke's opinion. People who are below a certain threshold of income tend to be running away from the pains of life, the bills.
Mm-hmm.
When they arrive at a certain point, they start going toward, because all the basics, all of the even comfort items are taken care of, right? Which is a very important pattern, because if someone wants to make a lot of money, they need to at least have friends that are all not worried about bills. They need friends who are all looking for what they can go towards. So this is one of the first patterns. Even if you think you're doing well, those of you who are listening, if you're not looking and designing friends and relationships that are going toward, but they're going away from, what you'll find is you get stuck at below a certain threshold, monetarily, as well as other aspects of life. Wouldn't you agree?
I 100% agree to that. Guaranteed. Yeah, that's a fact. It's not opinion. That's a fact, because you can look and analyze people's lives and see that people that are stuck in those patterns, usually the away from pattern, though, will keep people stuck and inundated. It's like, I'm going to give you a little bit of a metaphor. So I ride dirt bikes, and I was living in California, and the back of the house was just nothing but all of these incredible, massive hills that you could go riding for days and days and days. And when I was just barely brand new, I'm scared. These hills are like this. So they're really scary to go up, right? And so I'd start going up a hill, and I would get scared, and I'd go down. But then I started getting confidence. I'm going to go up this hill. I go up this hill. But then I started going up a little bit more aggressive hills. Now, here's the thing. Up these hills, there'd be like a big, giant obstruction, like a huge rock in the way. And don't hit the rock, don't hit the rock, don't hit the rock. And I bet you can guess exactly what I would do every time. I'd hit the rock, I'd fall down. And I was like, having once my dirt bike went over and over and over and over on end. It cracked the motor. I had to get a new motor. But and then I kept doing it, right? And what I realized is that it's not about the obstruction, which would be considered a challenge. It's about finding the path and looking, aware of the obstruction, but looking at the path around the rock. As soon as I started seeing that, I see, oh, there's a big rock. What's the way around? Rather than putting all my attention and my focus on the rock, put my attention and focus on going around the rock. And invariably, I didn't hit any more rocks and didn't have any more tumbles anymore, because I was paying attention to what I wanted. And I believe life is like that. And so if you're stuck thinking about bills, and you're trying to strategically shop, or even if you're at the $1 million mark and your whole thing is trying not to lose it, you're trying to cling to the money that you made and making sure that you're going to make it again, you're eventually going to lose it, because you're putting all of your focus in the away from model, not from the towards. So the difference with anybody that has wealth, I've always found, is anybody that has true wealth, they're always thinking and strategically playing the game of life and looking, what's the next big thing? What's the next big thing I'm doing? What am I going to do? Where's the next big deal that I'm going to have? Where's the next, $100 million I'm going to make? And that's what their focus and attention is. You don't get these people thinking about clinging to what they have. They have more than enough. But at the end of the day,
unless they're second or third generation who's never learned to get towards something, which can be a real problem.
That couldn't that be broken though, right? Because the people I know, they're not.
A lot of them are first generation wealth, right?
First generation.
Yeah.
In fact, there are a lot of stories just like mine. So they're all first generation wealth. And so these guys have overcome that encumbrance inside the mind, that focus of worrying about it losing it, worrying about, like, how am I going to do this? And a lot of times for me too, it's like, that's been my biggest thing, is understanding and realizing, like, hey, I'm stuck in these cycles where I'm thinking about away from patterns. And it's like in chess, like, let's just go back into chess analogy. Like, is it better to be on the defensive or the offensive in chess? The offensive, right? You want to be positioning yourself to where they're having to make moves. Now, they might outmaneuver you if you're not paying attention, but for the most part, this is why white is the advantage, because they're always playing on their heels, because now you're the aggressor. And so life is like this. The idea behind this is, if you're focused on what you want and you're focused on always advancing, I found that I usually get what I want. It was like that book that I read years and years ago. I started focusing on what I wanted and not what I didn't want.
I noticed you said typically. What are the times that you don't
get what I want?
Mm-hmm.
It's not the time. It's like the time frame. So time frame. So I want everything right now, but there's like a space and time I got to wait. And I believe that sometimes it feels like I'm testing myself to see if my resolve is there, because in this current state of things in my life, I'm leaning into discomfort anytime. And I go back into what you said. So you're like, people kind of fall back and they complete these patterns and loops. And what I found is it's always to do with the identity. And the identity is usually lodged in some past mistakes, past failures, your parents' past, their parents' past. It's generational. And so what I found is that it's always like my identity, my new identity. If I want something new, I'm going to have to think different thoughts and do different things, or I'll always get what I always got. And so it's always going to come from me. I'm using always, so you're going to use this against me. The majority of the time, in my experience, you have to forge a new identity. And the identity of my future, I'm trying to imagine what that looks like. I'm trying to wonder, who is that identity? Who's that identity of who I'm going to become? Like, what is that? And so anytime I catch those thoughts rolling in the background, I'm like, let's see here. Is that true? Like, because it's a predictive machine. The human mind is a predictive machine.
Now, you don't need to tell us where you want to go to, but I'm having some suspicions, because you're saying So I'm suspecting that you don't have because here's what I read so far on the patterns, right? You're a very caring individual. Even though you've gotten really good at sales, you have been leading people, but people don't lead other people the way you do unless you care about them. You really care about your people and the people that are, under your influence, right? Or your leadership. And you don't like to abandon old friends. Am I good so far? You don't like to just let go of people that were there, before.
This was 100% spot on. Yes.
And because of that, you don't free up enough space and time for people that also deserve you, and vice versa. These people who already know the future identity that you want, and they are there. They're actually living that life. And so unconsciously, to prove your loyalty to stay with your friends, you find ways to find people that are really kind of up here, but then they do business in a way that sort of like either screws you or forces you back into hanging out with your old friends. Is that so far so good? Or are there some moments?
We could say yes. Yeah.
Okay.
I mean, it's not spot on, but it's pretty accurate. So if I'm like, I've been leading people, we lead a 9-figure business last year, biggest solar sales company in Arizona. And, a lot of the guys I trained, these guys were like I was, like an old me. And they came to me and I feel a huge amount of responsibility making sure that these guys are, that I'm leading these guys right. And I feel weird to abandon them. But at this point, at this stage of my life, this transition, a lot of those guys like just completely shut down the company. I'm like, I don't want anything to do with it. And so a lot of those guys I have, because I understood exactly what you're making a point to. It's like, to make room for the people that I want, I can't continue to be around the people right now. I have to make room for new people. And this was one of the problems that I had, or one of the challenges I had in the past, is like my life was, so full of, leading, training, and developing And I didn't really have time to be around the people that were doing and performing the way that I wanted to do and perform.
Yeah, because you mentioned you are getting into coaching, because being a great coach also necessitates one has space and time to be the greatest student, right? Because the student becomes the great coach. And so, because you attract how coachable you are in terms of clients. Now, what's interesting is if you don't make room because you keep helping those other, it's a paradox, right? Because do you coach these people that are making, doing the things that you want to do, your future identity? Or do you coach the people that were your old identity? Because one would help you, the other one may pay you, but they'll pull you.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Because we got to be real careful. I know you said you're getting into coaching, but it sounds like a loop going back into helping people that were like the old you, which is not going to serve you. They'll pay you probably, but they're not going to pay you enough because your identity will block some of that money, right? If you keep sticking around them. So one of the strategies that I humbly applied from the beginning was always looking for people that were better than us. Like, sounds funny, right? Because I'm always about upgrading people that I look up to. Like our clients, if I don't look up to them, I don't want to work with them.
Mm.
That's weird, right? It's like, whoa, then how are you coaching them? I don't actually see myself as a coach. I see myself as a programmer working on their mental program, which is very special. But these are people I admire, what they've done, what they're doing, what they will do. So it's a different way because I know the danger of stepping into, oh man, I like this person because they're so much like the old me. But the problem is my empathy, my sympathy, my compassion, whatever it is, will cause me to be around them so much that they'll pull me into who they are. Instead, I'm like, well, I need these people that are exactly what I designed, where I want to be. I go and solve their mental or emotional or whatever it is that, that we do, right? Their patterns. Then I get to absorb their patterns, fix it, give it back. Now I got a copy. And all of a sudden, I aggregate over a few thousand people's mental programs that are excellent. And I'm like, that's how you do it, right? So I'm curious, since you're going into coaching space, right?
Yeah.
This is one of the things I feel responsible as a friend. I'm like, hey, Luke, how about we have a conversation? Because I know what the difference would be, right? If you shift to this audience somehow, which, I mean, look, people like you. So if you design this group, you're going to get paid and you won't be trying to be that person of the future you that you want to be, right? You'll be the person because these people will be the 5, 10, 20, 30, 100 people and you'll become many say we become the average of the 5 we hang out with, right? But imagine surrounding yourself with 100 extremely, extremely successful people. Yeah. There's no chance you would fall back. There's no way. Your default would be the middle of them.
Yeah.
Which would be amazing, right? It sounds like that would
100%.
Be a great move because it's not about hard work now. It's about pattern recognition. And if your pattern recognition, you fill it with excellent behaviors that creates abundance, you're going to have a much lower chance you can't even consider this world anymore. It's always going to be at least the middle of this, right? So what do you think?
Dude, that was awesome. It's a spot on. I've considered it too. Like I know that. So we're looking at a guy on the wall right now. Dude, I am infinitely better. So would I help the people that he's helping, or would I help him be better? And if I could help him be better, like, what do you think that would be worth? So I'm going to give you some skills that you don't have. And I'm going to give you some skills that will make you infinitely better at what you do. And there's a whole lot of people that I know just like him.
Now we're talking,
need
Luke.
my help.
Now we're talking.
The idea here.
Now I'm excited for you.
Okay.
Yeah. I was like, man, don't do it.
Yeah.
Before I was like, don't do it. Good. Okay. Keep going, please.
So so here's where this goes. I've known that. I've realized that because I'm personal friends with a guy that's very big in that space. Love the guy. He's amazing. He's good in a lot of other areas, but in the area that I'm significantly better at, he could definitely, and the entire team could definitely use what I know. And if we're talking about that level, that's the level that I really would like to be at. Versus staying back. And you're exactly right. I can see this is what's happened with like last year and the year before, building out this massive team. I'm like, I'm just going back into, and I'm teaching these guys advanced tactics. And I can see that the lights aren't on. I can tell because we're doing training twice a week, and I can see that it's not taking hold because they need the milk before the meat, and I'm giving them.
They're worried about
meat.
their bills. When you're teaching them, they're thinking about how they're going to pay for, garbage or I don't know, water.
No, they're worried about paying their car payment.
Okay,
I mean, dude,
that's good at least.
And we don't want to get into like all of the guys that were in there, but there was some successful guys. There were some guys I really like working with that could understand and incorporate what I was teaching. But the majority of those guys, because the stuff that I use is very advanced, didn't understand. And you're exactly right, like it's spot on. And so I was frustrated, like, how can I attract the types of people that will just understand this, get this, and I'll see the lights come on? Well, you just answered it for me right there. It wasn't about, okay, find that particular type of person and make them better. Find the people that are already doing great and make them better. And those types of people are always looking to be better.
They're going to be so much easier to work with.
So much easier. Because first of all, when you teach them the lights come on, you can see that they understood, they understand, and they're going to implement. So, and going back into like feeling responsibility for guys, I feel like the things that really bug me the most is when I teach these, I pour into these guys, I give them everything I have, and I just never see them take off, and I never see them apply it. Is beyond frustrating for me. I'm like, what more can I do? But you just answered that you just resolved exactly what the issue was. It was focusing and concentrating on the wrong particular people in that model.
Yeah, that only took us a few minutes. We're done. I'm just kidding. We're not done. Oh man, that's good. That's good because look, I mean, I've always seen you as someone who should work with this group rather than people that won't understand you, because that's not fun for anyone, right? And over the years, we've changed how we work with people or who we work with a number of times because we wanted to find our sweet spot. And one of the most unfortunate things is when you care about someone a lot or a group of people a lot or a large group of people a lot, but you know they're just not, it's not that they're not intelligent. They're plenty intelligent, at least I think, but they haven't had the experience. They haven't done the action to get them to a point where they would have the container for what you're going to share with them. That container is critical. Mm. So now let's go back on your future for a moment, if that's okay, right?
Yeah.
Where would you like to be? I'm assuming there's some monetary as well as other aspects. Like you don't have to get super specific, but whatever you want to share, whatever you're comfortable sharing, I'd love to hear because then we're going to apply this pattern recognition and then let's have at it, right? Let's have some fun. So if you don't mind, share a little bit with us.
Well, now that you completely destroyed my model of the world, I think we'll go back into it. Completely ruined everything. He just ruined it. So, before I came here, I got a very clear future of what I want. And one was to make massive impact. And so massive impact in the lives of others and teaching people how to better communicate. So this is like the lives of others. Now, if we're like, okay, well, how this is why I said that you just ruined my model because like now I'm like, okay, well, how many of these people do it? I have to really dumb my stuff down. Like I have to make it very simple because for me, it's easy. It's just like you. It's just like understanding it. You before this podcast, you're like, I saw the solution. I'm like, I bet you he sees a solution like that, like how I see sales solutions. I'm like, dude, that's just perfect. That's how I see sales solutions. I see somebody trying to sell somebody. I'm like, dude, what are you doing? And I immediately see the pathway forward. You are in the pathway for a little bit more macro stuff with helping countries. But mine's like, if somebody's selling something, I can always find the holes in it and I can find a better way. Now, whether or not they understand that, but if we're looking at my life, I've hit 9 figures for me. If I'm netting 9 figures a year, that's more than enough for me to do what I want to do. People ask, well, why don't you want to build? Like, I don't think I can, there's nothing that I wouldn't be able to do if I'm making 9 figures a year. Like 9 figures a year is relatively, I don't think it's that hard. It's not that challenging. maybe I get to 9 figures, just like I got to 100,000. I was like, when do I make $1 million? I got $1 million. When do I make $2 million? So on and so forth. But the whole idea with it is like 9 figures for me at this point in time is perfectly good. But also like
100 or 500 or 900. What's the
for 9 figures?
Yeah,
like $190 million a year. I can do what I want with who I want.
I like the specificity. Not 200, 190.
If God wants to give me $200 million, let's go. I'm not going to reject it because I only wanted $190 million.
Okay.
If it's 190 plus, let's go.
Got it.
But the thing is, like the $1 billion mark, I didn't really see it. I don't see right now in my current state of life where like $1 billion would be more helpful. It's not going to utilize what I want to do even more so. So 9 figures is fine for me. When I did the 100-year goals, I was like, yeah, I'm going to be a billionaire. But then I thought about it. I was like, why do I want that? Like, what can I do with that I can't do with this? I'm like, okay, this is fine.
You may change your mind after you shift hanging out with this group to this group.
That's exactly right. Or I'll get to the 9 figures and be like, dude, this is jump change. Like how much more difficult is it to make $1 billion versus 9 figures? Like I'm making $190 million a year. Like it can't be that much more. It can't be that much more challenging to make $1 billion. She had the 9-figure mark. So, but that's where I'm at. And the other thing too is I've always, because of my identity, because of where I came from, like, I have this sweet soft spot for those people that are struggling. And I feel like because of my story, because I believe I'm an underdog coming from the existence that I had, even right now, if my life ended today, like I've overcome.
Yeah, it's not going to happen.
Done
Your
all
life
this
is
crazy
going to
stuff.
go on for a long time.
100%.
Yes. I got what you're saying.
Exactly.
Keep going.
Yes. You don't want to say that because one time we were having a conversation. I was like, if I got diagnosed, you're like, don't say it. Don't say it. Yeah, I'll be what was that? I was going to be one of those paragliders, or I was going to be one of those jumpers off the canyon. But yeah, that, and then the idea though is I have this soft spot for these people that I'm a beacon of hope, because if I can do it, anybody can do it. Like, listen, I was the guy that everybody counted out. I mean, like literally everybody, the judicial system definitely counted me out. Like my school counted me out. Any teacher I ever had counted me out. Like this guy, there's no way this guy's going to make it. My mom counted me out. Like even my close personal relationships, family counted me out. And so like, as I continue to go further and further.
Pause you real fast.
Yeah.
It depends on where you're counting as your starting point. Because if you count that as your starting point, you're going to always have a sweet spot for those people, which is very awesome, very sweet. If you count your starting point at $1 million, then you're going to have a sweet spot for all the millionaires out there.
Yeah.
You're going to be like, these poor guys, they're only making $1 million. They're comfortably poor. I need to help them become 190 millionaire.
Yeah.
Right? So you can see where you place your starting point has an influence of.
Well, some of that starting point is I always feel obligated to help the people that nobody's helping. Like if you look at some of these people, like let's say like for me, like nobody ever, like I didn't have a good teacher. I didn't have a good mentor. I didn't have anybody in my life that could really direct me and guide me and help me. And so like that was a challenge. This is why I went the direction I did. I went that direction because I had no father figure and I had no guidance. I had nothing like that. And so like if, the collection of my life is like showing these people that are lost and hopeless and are derelicts that people counted out, just like myself. And if I can help those people by being a beacon of hope and then giving them just a couple nuggets that can change the trajectory of their life, like that leads to fulfillment and purpose for me. Like helping a guy make from $1 million to $200 million, $300 million. Yes, that's the position I could certainly be in, but like I'm considering, I've always had a soft spot for people that.
So it sounds important to you.
It sounds important because it's like something that I felt like I really could have used when I was younger. Like nobody, like I didn't come from a, it's all relative. So you can say I came from a privileged family, government cheese, government housing, government everything. You could say like, well, at least you had a house. But at the end of the day, like there's a lot of people out there that just they need to read a book. They need to change the perspective. And I firmly believe, and this might be right or wrong, but I believe that everybody has the same opportunity. And all they need to do is shift. Just like I read that book, changed my life. It opened up my mind to a new perspective. before then I had these dirty glasses I was wearing. I couldn't see life. I thought I was looking at life, but it was through a dirty lens of glasses. And I think like when I read that book, I wiped the lenses off just a little bit to see life more as is. And the older I get and the more that I learn, I continue to wipe some more of that smudge off those lenses. You know, it's always going to be like, I feel
Why
like
not
it's
just clean it all the way?
well, I'm waiting for you to clean it for me. That's what you just did today. So you're cleaning them all the way. Here's the thing: if I don't know if I clean them all the way, then what happens? And I know everything.
Would that be okay with you?
My happiness has always been found in progressing. So it's not in my accomplishments.
Ooh.
Yeah.
So if you hold yourself back, then you can progress more.
I don't want to hold myself back. I'm always moving forward. So like any of the things.
How fast do you think? I mean, I'm intentionally interrupting with love, right? So progress, right? It's not result, it's progression. So that also potentially means that it necessitates some challenges and problems, because progression sometimes can happen a lot of times through trials and hardship, right? And problems. So have you unintentionally or intentionally created problems, of course, unconsciously, right? So that you can have progression rather than results?
Problems that were opportunities for me.
Okay.
There's no such thing as a problem. Everything works out for me. Life always works out for me. What I used to perceive as problems has been sometimes my greatest blessing in my life. So it's all a matter of perspective. If I'm going through life and I get hit and something like, you know, is going to shake me, I'm like, rather than look at this, how can I get out of this problem? Like, what I ask myself is, where's the silver lining in this? How is this working for me? And it switches and it changes my perspective to one of like, oh, this is a big deal. This is a big problem, to like thinking about how this is going to benefit me. And the thing is just like going to the gym. I believe it's like going to the gym. It's like if you go to the gym and you just push a 10 pound dumbbell, you do it consistently. Like, are you ever gonna build muscle? No. You go to the gym and you push a 10 pound. Maybe you can start with a 10 pound. Then maybe you progress and you do 20 and 30 or 40, 50. In building the muscle, you have to tear the muscle. Now you can say, well, tearing the muscle is a problem. No, it's not. If you want to build muscle, you've got to tear the muscle so that it ends up building muscle. And so consider this for a second. Like every single challenge that I've ever gone through, even the painful stuff, has always been a benefit for me.
This is an important point that I noticed you brought up just now. The laws of the physical world and the growth in the physical world is different than the laws that govern the mental and the non-physical world. So if you apply the physical laws of progression in the non-physical, it's going to create problems and challenges, even though you'll look at them as opportunities.
So, but if I'm going through life and I don't see problems, I see like something that's an undesirable outcome, and I look at it and I'm asking myself for the silver lining, how would it ever be a problem in the outward manifestation if I'm perceiving as something an undesirable outcome, and I'm looking at it and I'm looking at the silver lining, I don't think it's a problem any longer. And now it's a benefit.
No, I'm talking about the macro, because why would there even be a problem in the first place? So that you have to look for the silver lining, because that presupposes you have to look for something good inside of a bunch of things that may not be good, right? But imagine a world where you only are surrounded by wonderful experiences, and then you're looking for the best. That'd be a little different, or
that would
significantly different, right? So that's where the shift of environment will change. Because right now, because historically you've been dealing with wonderful people, sounds like, that loves to progress, but they are not as advanced when it comes to progression, right? And you want to pull them up. And that's very, very nice, because it is needed. That being said, association and education are two different things. You can educate them without necessarily being with them all the time, right?
Right.
And yet, if we're looking at it from the old perspective of being at the gym, you know, the physical working at it, I'm implying this, and you can correct me if I'm wrong. I'm implying that you're also spending physical time with them. Is that right? You're spending no?
No, not that we do. I do a group call with them. So I was spending a lot of physical time with them last year because they were part of my team.
Okay.
So they were at my house.
So historically, you have.
Yes, but as far as like the coach, no.
But not anymore.
No, not anymore.
Okay, good.
I see the folly, and it was frustrating. It was frustrating because now I'm seeing a inner look at their lives because they're around me all the time. And some of those people, like, to be honest with you, I didn't want to be around all of the people, the whole team. There was some people that I liked, and there's some people I'm like, they don't get it. They're not even understanding exactly what I'm talking about. But at this point, like, if I'm looking at this, I have this selective friends of people that are performing at the level that I'm going to perform at. And those are the people that I choose to be around. And then the rest of those people, I'm just helping to become better.
How much time are you spending with them?
2 group calls a week.
Okay. Not significant then.
Mm-mm.
I'm asking these questions because I want to understand where the comment on silver lining comes from. Because, I mean, imagine this, right? I'm going to use this silly analogy because I love cars. I mean, you like cars?
No, you love cars.
Yes, I love cars.
I know you do.
Let's just use cars for an example, and then we'll use something you like. Yeah. What do you like, by the way?
Well, I like being out. I like doing landscaping in my yard.
Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah, dude.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, that's awesome. I don't know it well enough.
I actually like boats. So I'm a
you
boat
like
guy.
boats?
Yes.
Okay, that's an easy one for me.
Yeah, there you go.
Okay, perfect. What kind of boats, by the way?
I like the Super Aeronautiques.
Okay. I'm not super familiar.
It's a good boat.
Center console or no? Like, are we talking about wake boat?
Wake surf.
Got it. Okay. Do you like ocean boats too, or mostly lake boats?
Nope, just lake boats. Listen, if you have to be, I'm a doer, not a considerer. So when doing, I want to be riding on I want to be surfing, I want to be wakeboarding, I want to be doing stuff on the boat versus just riding around. You know, I know your big thing is the yachts. I'm like, dude, a yacht's so boring. I don't know what I'm doing there. I know.
See, it's different activities. Yeah.
Same thing with Ferrari downstairs. Like, I'm like, it's not this is not my thing.
I think it depends on what you do inside of it, right? Because for me, the yacht is not for me to go wake surfing on the ocean. For me, it's a serene place to disconnect from the world and go read.
Oh, there you go.
So reading on a boat for me is my favorite activity. It's not because I want to be on a yacht. It's because I want to be completely out there where nobody can bother me when I read.
Yeah.
And that's awesome. And I could do it on a cruise. I could do it like in a number of places too, like in a private room, right? Regardless of what we use as a metaphor, the point is if you are looking at all of the boats that you want and you pick one that's like the best, you wouldn't be saying you have to look for a silver lining unless the boats have problems.
Yeah, 100%.
Right? Like if in front of you there were 100 boats, they're like, hey, we're going to gift it to you. Pick one. You're not going to be like, oh, what's the silver lining in this? Like it's just a great thing to experience. As silly as that sounds, but if you're looking for a silver lining, we're presupposing that there are things that you have to put at least a little bit of mental effort into looking for something good out of it. Now, I'm not crazy enough to suggest that there are no problems in life, right? That would be ridiculous. That being said, I sense that there's a theme because of the nature of your obsession, wanting to progress. You have put yourself with people that forces you to look for the silver lining. But as a friend, I'm noticing that this is getting to a point where it's not serving you. For someone of your, like you, who's naturally going where you're going, I think that instead of putting your boat in a really bad weather day, do you like wake surfing in a
no?
No,
it sucks.
Sucks, right?
Yeah, it's terrible.
That sounds like what you've been doing in a sense. Why not put your boat in a nice weather day so you can wake surf and enjoy the actual challenge that will help you grow your skill, not unnecessary things that are just bothering you.
100% with you. So 100%.
I finally got the boat analogy in. Yes.
You crushed it. Good job. Use the weather analogy. It sucks boating on those particular boats when it gets scrappy outside. It's terrible.
Yeah. Hey, look, I was driving a boat, not a big yacht, small one, on a choppy day in France one time, and I almost tipped the boat.
Yeah, it's like
it is not fun, right?
Yeah, like it's not exciting.
So, what's the purpose of doing that?
What's the purpose of creating the problems? So
like choosing to go out on the bad weather day.
Oh, I have chosen to do that. In fact, and it was crappy. But if I'm looking at some of the past, creating some of those problems, maybe something inside me said it's life. I don't know. I really don't. I don't know why I would have created them. I'll tell you why. Because I didn't know any better a way of thinking.
Oh.
The things that I do is like and when I talk about the progression, I'm like, okay, I have a desired outcome. I'm outcome thinking. I'm toward thinking. So here's my outcome, and this is what I want, and I'm progressing towards there. And maybe I don't necessarily get the exact outcome that I want. So like I'm progressing towards my outcome, and it doesn't actually come into the outcome I wanted. And so I'll consider like, okay, well, how is this better? Like, how is this better than what I wanted? Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm.
So a lot of times the thing that I haven't been able to control, I haven't been able to control timing to get my outcomes. Like I can't, in 3 months, I'll want it in 3 months, but I haven't been able to determine exactly how to get something I want with outcome thinking in 3 months. I'm usually going to have to, sometimes I don't, it doesn't feel like I control a lot, or I don't control the time of when I get the things that I truly want and desire.
I have a question for you. I have an answer for you, but it's gonna come through in a question.
Okay.
Do you drive manual? I know you don't love cars.
I have driven manual.
You
Yeah.
know how to drive manual.
Yes.
Great. So if you shift your gear and it's the wrong timing.
Yep.
Yeah. And or like if you use the clutch a little too slow or too fast, the car stalls, right?
Yep.
That timing issue you're talking about is the gears not lining up.
Mm-hmm. Well, how do you make the gears line up?
That's the question. That's the question.
So it's about being in alignment. So I found that the alignment, it's about being in alignment, shifting those gears right at that sweet spot time. And if you're talking about the car, then you kind of know from the RPMs of the engine when to shift gears.
So one time I bought a car. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And I bought this car for one purpose, to learn how to drive manual.
Okay.
Every day I drive that car, it felt like suffering. I felt like I was just like, why am I doing this to myself? And I was like, oh, it's the only way I know, because I got to force myself to do it so I can drive manual, right? Because I want to drive manual somehow. And for some reason, it didn't occur to me that I should just have a friend who's an expert in driving manual show me a few times and I just pick up on how to do it, right?
Yep.
But instead of just having one friend, I was like, why not have a bunch of friends who know how to drive manual really well? And recently I got a friend who was staying with us, and he's an expert at driving manual. He is amazing at driving manual. He's so good, he drives even old classic cars. Like when the clutch is even more, I mean, those cars are ancient, but he can somehow, he lines them up perfectly. They're not forgiving in any way. And so I had him drive my car, and I just watched and listened. I literally just listened to the gear, and I was like, that's how you do it. That was the missing piece, right? And so what I'm suggesting is the same thing I was suggesting earlier. I think that instead of just having a few friends that have arrived at where you want to go, saturate your life with those people so that everywhere you look, it's a pattern that's different. And you can't ignore it, because even if you close your eyes, you will hear how they talk, think differently. For someone who can do what you do, because I'm hearing and seeing a pattern here, right? Like you jump into something that you like, you're applying the same obsession, but this obsession takes you to the very best because you enjoy the impact, you enjoy the experience of working with people. You like people, you care about people, and you love seeing results. You like seeing happy customers. I'm seeing that humanistic part of you, right? And I'm seeing the combination of that obsession together makes you really great at working with people, therefore sales, right? And there's a beautiful exchange there. What I am seeing also is the next piece may not seem familiar because it's going to challenge every fiber of your being in thinking differently. Because these people, you're selling them now things that they probably, how do I put it? You're selling to people who likely could teach you certain things that you would be like, I admire these people. Why are they hiring me to work with them or help them? But that's precisely what I'm suggesting, because really successful friends don't just share with you how they became who they are, even if they hang out with you a bunch, unless you're working with them intimately, right? So if you're working with them intimately and that's your business life, you're going to be surrounded by people that are going to tell you their problems and their solutions and everything in between. I suspect that will change what you consider the norm. Because right now, what we're talking about is the norm has been set in a way that causes you to have to look for silver linings. The norm has been going out boating in terrible, choppy weather.
Yeah.
So I'm asking you, please, what if we go out when it's beautiful all the time? Now you don't have to look for silver lining. It's just always great. Now you're able to focus on the things that will create massive wealth for you in all areas, rather than having to deal with problems you don't really need to, shouldn't be dealing with anymore at this point and stage in your life, right? Would you say that's accurate?
Yes.
Ah. Have you designed your ideal friends and clients? This new kind?
No.
I think that would be good.
Yeah.
Yeah. I'll help you look at it. Like design it. I'll help you look at it. I think that is going to be nothing. Maybe life-changing would be an understatement. I think that you're going to be where you belong finally. And of course, I think you can belong anywhere. That's your choice, right? But I think naturally, based on your mental aptitude, what you're able to do in a very short period of time and sustain, because I'm hearing these stories and I'm like, this is not normal. Why hang out with normal people? I'm not saying that's bad, right? They need help. I've been there. You've been there. We've all been there. Yet there are a lot of people, like no one's saying, I'm going to solve these millionaires' problems. I mean, you can work with these millionaires intimately and then solve their team's problems. But you're handling mainly with the owner. There's a number of ways to do this, right? And you already have solutions, I can tell.
Yeah.
So I'm curious, what would you say your ideal clients are? Like I won't ask you for details, but like just curious, big picture. Based on what we just talked about.
What you just talked about. Well, obviously like 9-figure businesses, 10-figure businesses that need help in their communication, like any of those people.
Their sales, right? That's always something that people could use help on.
Yeah.
Even if they're really great at sales.
Well, I haven't really met a company that's really, really good at sales, really great. There's good, but there's not really, really great. People are always trying to sell people. It's always about sales training. But when you understand how people buy, flips the script. So it's like we're having a conversation via text the other day, and sales is like a funnel. So you start it here at the top and you swirl all the way down. And at the end, it's just like one hole. And in that hole, it's the solution. It's what they're looking for because it's in alignment with what they already want. And so the way that you communicate in that side of a sales context is that it's their idea to go move forward. It's their idea to buy. Nobody ever says, "Oh, I just got sold." No, they said, "I bought. Look at the new car I just bought." They didn't say, "Look at this car that the salesman just sold me." Nobody says that.
Mm-hmm.
People are never going to be comfortable about being sold, but people love to buy. And so when you can communicate in a sales context and people, at the end, it's their idea to move forward.
Yeah.
Because you created that funnel with one decision, which is in alignment with who they are. It's part of their identity. And they make that decision to move forward.
Mm.
And I think there's I haven't met a sales company that's been able to line that up and be able to show people how to do that. I haven't seen one. There might be one out there. I just don't know of it. So just like you design people that self-close, that communication model, they're self-closing.
Somebody needs to have that fulfillment.
So if we're thinking about the company, if we're thinking about, I'm going to help, it's 9-10-figure businesses, anybody that talks to anybody, usually it's going to start with some sort of a sales, right? It's the tip of the spear. It's usually the first thing. has to happen to move a product. You might have a great product, but if you can't sell it, it's not great. Nobody will ever find out about it. So if you have good salespeople that are effectively communicating, then you can move any product anywhere, anytime.
So here's an interesting question that I've played with in my mind. Sales and marketing. Some say if you are really good at sales, marketing is irrelevant. Some say if you're really good at marketing, people will just buy regardless without sales. How do you see, is there a balance? Is it both? Is it neither? Is it what's in your reality?
Well, and glad you asked that. I'm just finding out about marketing, because how nice would it be to have people just get online, I want it, click, and not have to have any sort of communication with some sort of salespeople. That would be the best. So like the other guy that's on the wall over there, he's absolutely fantastic at that. He is the greatest. Read a lot of his books, and just recently I just been figuring out like what his model is. And so if you have a really good marketing, there's going to be some of those people. If you're really good marketing, you can just funnel those people, because once again, it's using the human psychology of not selling them, but you're going to find where's their pain points, right? Who do they identify as? And then you're going to be able to filter that and then come up with the solution that's in alignment to solve their problem and part of their identity on who they are or who they want to be. So that's the whole sales cycle. Now, designing a marketing company like that, that's just got to be really, really, really good at marketing. And then like you don't need a whole lot of salespeople. There are going to be those people that are going to be really stubborn that aren't going to, be able to funnel down through some sort of, to some sort of marketing. But
I see. So there's a sweet spot of those people. On top of it, their sales aren't that great and they need help.
There's a lot of people, like everybody needs my help. Everybody.
Love that. So
everybody. I could help all those guys on the wall right there. Everybody on the wall right there.
So if you're listening and you need help with sales, we've got a friend here. And the beauty is when you shift to this audience, I think that a lot of the people who are listening are going to resonate with this.
Yeah. Well, most of the time, I would say people feel like, okay, so maybe you're really good. Like, just to give you a scenario. We just went and stayed in Tampa Bay a couple weeks ago. We went to an event and we stayed with my cousin-in-law. His name's Oleg. He's an incredible dentist. You go to some dentists and like if you have you need additional work, they'll refer you out to somebody. He doesn't ever do that. He's like, I'm going to do everything. So he'll do crowns, root canals. He'll do very challenging dental work. He'll do it all. Now, where he struggled with is sales. He struggled like with asking people, like, I see you got crooked teeth. Do you want Invisalign? So we stayed with him for 3 days. A lot of times we're at the event, but I'd come back and I would talk to him about it. The first thing I had to figure out is like, why aren't you asking everybody that needs your help? It's like, I ask a couple and then they tell me no, and I get frustrated. I'm like, okay. So what I did is I reframed his identity. So this is the first thing about being in sales. Reframe his meaning that he gives selling. So he went to school for 10 years. He's a professional. He doesn't feel like he has to sell. Like his identity is wrapped up into going to school and being a really, really, really good professional. So the first thing, I didn't give him a bunch of sales training because that would have gone on deaf ears. If it's not in alignment with his identity, he's not going to be able to present that to anybody else. The first thing is we switched his identity. And what I did is I planted a seed in there that he owes it to his family to sell everybody. He owes it to them. He's a really good father. He's a really good husband. And I framed his identity to like asking him a series of questions where now he feels obligated to sell because he owes it to his family. It's not underneath him. He's giving up $450,000 a year by not closing. So, and then I started with the sales training. Then I gave him some very easy things to follow. Now this guy's a dentist. He's a professional and that's not what he does. He does dental work and he's really, really good at it. So like last week, we just talked to him. He did in 1 week what he did all year last year. This was less than 3 hours of me helping him. So like the people that are listening that think that they'll say something like this, I'm not good at sales. And I'll say, how do you know that? Oh, well, I tried before. How many times did you try? Well, I tried a couple times. I just got, okay. So does that mean that you're not good at sales? Sounds like a belief system that says that does that mean you're never going to be good at sales? Just work the DILTS model on them. And so like I reframed this, started asking the questions, figure it out. And then they'll, oh, well, like I could be, but okay, then why aren't you selling? Why do you say that? And then get to the root of that. Then when we clear it up, we reframe it and we ask them some questions. And then what we have to do is frame it around exactly why they're obligated or why they need to, or something that's in alignment with their values. That's the first step with training anybody that's a professional, because most people out there that are professionals, you guys are like, I don't sell. I'm going to leave that to somebody else. And here's the first thing is changing your identity to someone that does it very effortless and easy. The way that I close is very effortless and easy. Talk about all the time, effortless and easy. Well, if you could make sales effortless and easy and feel that if you believe your product really helps people, then why aren't you sharing it with them? Why would you keep it under a bushel? You wouldn't. You'd want to share.
So you're talking about dentists right now, and most of them are not 9-10 figure business owners, right?
Yeah, he's making like $600,000 a year or something.
Yeah.
I just created he's 7-figure earner now. That one week he did more sales than he did all of last year in 1 week.
Is that an audience you're happy with, or is it going to be different?
The dentist office. I was already like, these people I could really help. You know why? Because they're 500. If they got a good dental practice, they got $1 million. And if you've ever been to a dentist, you usually have the front desk person that tries to get you to come in for a cleaning there. And I watch them and I'm like, this is such a terrible sales process. You can make it very easy and effortless just by reframing on how you're asking people to come in for their dental cleaning. It's very simple. But the first thing you have to be willing to because most people are uncomfortable. And if you're on the call or if you're watching this today, you're usually gonna, you get cringe. You're like, oh, I don't want to ask people. They might say no. You feel like they reject you. It's personal. It's never going to be personal. It's feedback. And now you got to just switch how you're saying it. That way didn't work. Oh, that's some good feedback. That didn't work. And then you keep trying until you get the open combination.
I can see your obsession here with sales training.
That's because I'm like, I know my value when it comes to sales. Yeah. Just like you finding a solution for an entire country, any type of sales. I see anybody, like yesterday, I go to this red light place and they're like, oh, we have a 40% discount. Did you want to buy some lotion? No. And then I was like, on my way out, I was like, hey, let me help you. I'm just going to give you just a couple nuggets right here. I couldn't reframe their identity. I got less than 5 minutes, but I gave them something that will work. If they implement it, it will work. It will work, because sales is not about selling. It's about understanding the buyer. If you understand the buyer, it's like you're playing cards and they're showing you their cards. Your cards are hidden, but you see all their cards. You got a pretty good chance of winning. And once you understand the buyer and you understand how to talk to people, then it becomes very easy and effortless. It's not hard. But what people do is they have bad sales practices, or they have some idea that, some used car sales guy, they had a bad sales experience and they're anchored to that bad sales experience, and they feel like they don't want that same sort of persona with them. And so they carry around that throughout their entire life, and they give away millions and millions of dollars that they could have made if they just would have thought about it for a second, maybe got some sales training anywhere. You get sales training from that guy, you get sales training from anywhere. It's going to be better than no sales training. And then get rid of the belief that I'm not good at sales.
Mm-hmm. I see your passion here. I think now it's a matter of you deciding who those 9 to 10 figure.
Let's go, Will. Let's go.
Because everywhere you go, it sounds like you're expending your energy on people to help them because you really care about them. Because you just can't stand this person not being able to achieve and experience excellence. This is a hugely awesome trade. You may be still wake surfing in bad weather. Right?
Well, show me the clean lake, dude. Let's go, man.
Yeah, the clean lake day.
It's going to be Glass Lake. I'll go out to the Glass Lake.
We gotta just look at the weather report and design in advance, because I think that right now it's a compulsion to help people, which is awesome. But I want your compulsion to be directed towards your ideal audience, because you're going to get paid. You're going to get paid really well.
Yeah.
And so, I mean, then the rest is history.
Yeah. So let's say that that's what I do. I go design the perfect client. And I obviously get your approval. Yeah, that'll work. What about this? And what about that? Okay, is this really good? Okay, they're perfect. let me talk about a little bit of a secondary gain here. So like, I'm helping all of these people, but what about those other people that needed the help that I was really passionate about helping?
I mean, heck, let's say you make 9 figures from helping these folks. You can donate your content to those people. You can charge $20. You can broadcast to the whole world. You can throw $1 million at advertising and marketing, and the world will see what you got.
Okay.
Right? So I think it's a, like you said, time frame. Doesn't have to be now.
I like everything that you're saying makes sense. 100%. Everything. Opened me up. I was already considering that because the dentist, like I was checking in with him and I gave it to him for free, by the way, too. I was like, it's free.
I figured.
But here's the idea. It's like, okay, you're going to be my poster boy. Because when you have a record setting year, like I'm using you. And then I was thinking, well, why do I got to wait a year? If he just did in 1 week what he did all year last year, is that not enough? Or like, does he have to do that every single month? And then I was considering some of the other options. Like, well, why don't I go and talk? Cause he's selling some Invisalign. Like, well, why don't I just go talk to the Invisalign company and tell them, listen, I can help all your people sell significantly more. They have the network. Anyways, that I was just considering. So those would be certain clientele.
Pause, if I may.
Yep.
May I suggest a little different model? Now, this is just an idea, right? Just an idea. You tell me, what if it's an merger and acquisition model where you are like, hey, look, I'm going to help you sell better. I'm going to give you sales training. I'm going to help you support you. And you give me a percentage of whatever you haven't made, but you will made through me.
Yeah.
Do it with 20 dentists. If they keep going at, doing in 1 week what they did in a year, you're going to make bank from that, right?
Yeah.
And you now own a percentage of their revenue. Well, you take that record, you're like, hey, look, I'd like to acquire part of your company by giving you back whatever revenue you just pay me. Now I own 10, 20, 30% forever. But I'm going to continue to help you sell more than you ever have. In fact, I can even put team members in there. So you don't even have to think about it. All of a sudden, you own 20, 30, 40, 100 dental office. You sell that to a big corporation for $100 million. Then you can just teach for free if you want it.
Yeah.
Something to consider. What do you think?
No, that's a great idea. It's a great idea. I mean, like all the ideas I've come up with right here are good.
Let's chat more. I have some good people that might be able to connect you with for merger and acquisition. So yeah, let's keep talking. I think this is good. I think that we don't want to give the audience all of the solutions because I can see the things spinning in your mind.
Yeah.
And I can expect the audience are feeling like, oh man, that's right. Who am I hanging out with? Because my reality right now, everybody's reality is that 10 to 40 bits, maybe 100 bits out of a billion bit per second.
Yeah.
Based on their environment.
Yeah.
And of course their experience in life, but their environment is the most important thing right now. So if they continue to stay with who they were a year ago, 2 years ago, they're going to stay where they are. There's going to be a maybe plus or minus 20% mark of change, right? Unless you change your environment. Notice every time you experience a change, you change your environment as well.
Yeah.
And work.
That's actually a very common thing.
So the next big move requires an internal change and an external change. But I'm suspecting your internal change is going to be more about that 5-10%. It's not massive. It's not going to be hard work. The external change is going to require strategic maneuvers, not hard work either. It's about changing who you're around. And then you're going to have different ideas too. And people are going to be talking to you about merger and acquisitions. They're going to be talking about roll-ups. They're going to be talking about business strategies that can do the same work that you do, right? You can continue to do the same work, but I'm suspecting your payout's going to be 10, 20, 30, 50, 100x. I think it's going to be your environment. That's going to be 90% of the lift. Let's continue to have fun. Thank you for coming on.
You're welcome.
This is going to be,
thanks for having me.
It's going to be a great 18, 24 months, just the beginning, I sense. So
how do I condense the 24 months down to 4 months?
Oh, I mean, your 4
Speed.
months is already condensed, but imagine multiply that
Oh,
5, 8, 20x, right?
Yeah.
Over the course of whatever, right?
Yeah.
It'll be a wonderful next 2 years of condensed 4 months, right? Repeating itself.
Yeah.
So, yeah. Thank you again for coming on. I look
Thanks,
forward to
Will.
seeing you around. Thank you for listening and watching.